I'm Stephanie Odie, and welcome to Heavy. And today I am joined by four-time Super Bowl champion, two-time NFL MVP, one of the greatest clutch players of all time. It is Joe Montana, of course. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having us. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, and I know you're coming on as part of Guinness, and you guys are opening up a new tap house in Chicago. I'd love to hear more about that. And, when are you going to get to go see it?
Yeah, it's going to be open to the public in 2023, and it's going to be in the West Loop area of Chicago. And it's going to be meant to, do a lot for the community, as they always do when they go into places. It's only going to be the second tap room in the U.S. Um, and like I said, it's 2023. It'll be open, and it's there to celebrate what's all good about Chicago, the good things. And they're also going to be beers that you can only find in this tap room in Chicago in there, as well as the normal ones from Ireland that we're all part of. And Guinness we announced that there's a new commercial coming out in celebration of the kickoff of the season, and to announce this this new tap room. And the commercial is kind of fun because I think it talks about how we've all been here and we've all come a long, long way together, and that now that things are starting to somewhat turn, good things are in our grasp, and it's just a matter of time. And they're going to start that celebration with this week in Chicago, actually, with the Notre Dame Wisconsin game being played at Soldier Field. So it's going to be a fun weekend for them and everyone else who's going to be there.
Yeah, Notre Dame has the partnership with Guinness. You mentioned the big game in Chicago this weekend. Lots of changes happening this year, especially with the realignment. And I'm wondering, is Notre Dame eventually going to join a conference?
I don't, I think I don't think you'll see that again. I'm not sure. It's just a feeling that Notre Dame's always been an independent, and they kind of still have the power or might to be able to control their own TV contracts and anything else that brings revenue to the Notre Dame, and not have to really share the pie with anyone. And because a lot of times when they're around, they're the ones carrying most of the pie, or making most of the pie, I should say. And I think it hurts them in the end on football, but I think they're willing to sacrifice that because you don't have that. Even though they added an extra game or tried to, it's not the same as having a conference championship game. And in the polls, they hold it against you for some reason.
Right. And they're kind of looking to make the college football more of an NFL feeling. Are you in favor of that? Do you want a super conference, or do you like the more traditional games that we see in certain regions and certain conferences, rivalries, things like that?
I don't know if I'm in favor for it or not. I just,
it's a tough one.
I see both ends of it. I can see the goods and the bads from both sides, but when you start doing that, then you leave the rest of the teams behind.
Right.
And I think that's been the beauty of college football, is especially now, you see a lot of teams that, that weren't always ranked up in there and have the ability to be ranked up in there. And a lot of it is because of, I believe that guys don't have to move around as much anymore. Like, there's Cincinnati up there in the top, right? You're seeing like some of the Florida Atlantic, and those teams are putting out good teams and putting players into the NFL. And when they start doing that, those guys don't feel like they have to leave home anymore. They don't have to go to a Notre Dame or Ohio State or Alabama. They can stay in Florida, or they can stay in Cincinnati, or whatever it might be. Yeah, there's still recruiting going on around the country. But for the most part, you don't want to leave those schools, feeling left out of the pie there.
Right. And this, especially after COVID, when everyone's craving football back, this is an odd year. You see Ohio State take a loss. Clemson isn't looking the same. Alabama even struggled against Florida. Where do you see the Final Four being coming to the playoff time?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Well, I know I think Alabama, I don't think they are out of that Final Four, but the other three are going to. I think it changes throughout the year.
Mhm.
There's a lot of still undefeated teams, and that Notre Dame. If you look at Notre Dame's schedule, they got a tough 4 weeks or so with
Mhm.
all ranked opponents coming up, and if they can get through that portion, those guys, then I think it helps them move up a lot in the polls. This will be
Yeah.
the first test for them coming up here with Wisconsin.
Yeah, staying the greatest is hard to do, but you've been able to hold on to the greatest of all time for a good amount. But you're singing your praises to Tom Brady. I saw a stat recently. After turning 35, he has 290 total touchdown passes. You had 273 throughout your career. I know you're asked this all the time. If he can play till the age of 50 with the game, the way it's changed, do you see that happening?
It's very possible. I mean, because the rules have been made to protect the quarterback, and so he's not taking those hits. And as long as you can keep yourself in a decent, physical shape, I don't see any reason why. He's not getting planted by 300-pound guys and compressed into the ground. So he gets rid of the ball fast. So yeah, I don't see any reason why not. And those guys, all have the capability. I mean, even Aaron,
Mhm.
I thought Drew would still be playing. I didn't think I'd see him retire that early yet,
Yeah.
with all those changes. But we all have our reasons to get out of the game.
Yeah, I think that whenever you're at that level of an athlete, there's a certain mindset that comes with it. You're super competitive, and we saw Michael Jordan gambling on planes after rides. And I have to wonder if you're looking at Brady play, do you ever get the itch? Can you ever just turn off the competitiveness, or do you think like, oh, if only I was in the same era, if I could compete against him? Do you ever have that itch?
Well, you always want to play. Doesn't matter what era it is. I'd go back and play in the era I played in even. So the game's just so much fun. It's just hard to, when you step away cold turkey. There's no going back to it. And
Mhm.
so it's hard to get that same excitement anywhere else. And golf doesn't do it for you. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
not the same. And you try different things, and nothing's really come close, not even halfway close to that feel on Sunday afternoon.
Right. And when you retire, and football is such a big part of your identity, I don't think it'll ever go away. Did you struggle with that, with the sense of identity? I mean, when you
Well, not so
leave
much
an
identity,
imprint like
but
that.
yeah, not so much the identity part, but it was more of the missing of the game.
Yeah.
I played since I was 8, so I played for 31 years.
Yeah.
As I say, a stupid game for a living, and then it's gone. I mean, just instantly gone. And so the first couple of years were hard to watch. The
Mm,
games, just now getting back into, even now, it's just I still don't watch all the games. There's a good game coming on or two good quarterbacks going at it. I try to watch if I can, but in most cases, like the first two, I think I watched one game in the first 2 weeks. So
mm.
mainly because we were just out and about doing other stuff, and we're pretty active as a family. And actually, Jennifer and I were up in Montana and Idaho during those weekends, and we were way out in Montana and way out in Idaho, even deeper out. So we didn't get to see them.
Yeah, and there's an interesting quarterback draft class coming in, and I'm wondering your early impressions at who's playing and who's where, whether Justin Fields should be starting in place of Andy Dalton, how Trevor Lawrence is doing in Jacksonville with a new NFL coach, and up in San Francisco as well. What are you thinking of all the quarterbacks, and who do you think will be the standout this year?
Well, I think the guys who have the most chances, here we go in Chicago. We'll see how he does, and he's got a chance to, be one of the up and coming guys. And is he ready? They obviously think, he's bringing enough to the table that he's ready to play. And um, I think when you look at the Giants, and Max got a good chance to play. New York's one of the toughest places to play, even for a home, even for a home team quarterback. But uh, yeah, and Trey out here is, you got a good guy in front of you who's playing well already, and he's played well in the past. So, Jimmy just has to stay healthy and stay on the field. And I don't think he has a problem with that, and I just hope it's hard to shuffle guys in and out, even though you want to keep the defense off. It's hard on the starter. It's harder on the starter than the guy coming in.
Mhm.
Um, and but Jimmy's just, as long as he stays playing the way he's been the first 2 weeks, he'll be all right.
Yeah, and I heard that you like to watch college football more than NFL. I'm wondering which
Yeah,
quarterback you would have selected in this draft.
I would have taken Mac Jones. Just,
Oh, okay.
he kind of fits the bill. He's mobile enough, but yet he most of the guys you see that win in the league are the guys that are in the pocket first. I mean,
Mhm.
you can look at Russell. People think he's a runner, but he's not a runner. He's a pocket guy that can
Yeah.
run when he has to. And I see that with Mac the same way. And yet everybody kind of doubts him because he's had a great team around him for the years that he played in Alabama. But he's had success, and he's getting an opportunity to see. So we'll see how it goes.
What was your reaction when they, released Cam Newton? And what did you think of Bill Belichick's decision to go all in on Mac Jones? Would you have done that as well?
Um, I think so. I think you take away some of the guessing on the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
On You take the doubt out of the quarterback's mind that he's going to get pulled all the time.
That's a
And
good point.
yeah, you'll have to pull him, but he knows it's still his job, and he's going to have a bad game. You
Yeah.
just can't worry about it, because that hasn't been an undefeated team yet, and well, since for a long time, since the Dolphins. But so you can't worry about a loss or a bad game, and you just got to keep moving forward. And I think he'll be great. He'll have a good season. I think.
Yeah.
Win. Well, we'll find, he's got a tough coming up here, right?
Yeah. Well, more often than not, NFL teams draft, they could say maybe the wrong person as the first quarterback off the board. And in the last 5 years alone, we have seen teams trade up to take Mitch Trubisky, Jared Goff, ahead of players like Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. How can it be that the most important pick for the team, how are NFL teams more likely to hit that? Why do you think that might be?
It's the draft is not a foregone conclusion. Everybody
Mhm.
thinks that because you're drafted high, only says you had a great college career, and they try to guess at whether you're capable of playing in the league, because they don't have a foolproof system. If you see all these guys doing all this stuff on the combine and all that, but the combine, because the guy's fast, doesn't mean he's a running back or a defensive back, or he can cover somebody, but he's fast. So they put you through all these things, where bench press so many times. If they put that amount of weight on me, I might still be lying there with this on my chest. I couldn't get, but it's just, they put so much into the strength and size and speed, and speed's good. It's one thing that you can't teach, as they
Yep.
say, but still doesn't mean you can play. So they don't really know why. They haven't figured it out, a foolproof way to decide whether a guy can play or not, and who makes that transition. And you can find as many busts in the first round as you can in the last round. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You
I
mentioned
wouldn't worry
Chicago
about
too.
I said
Yeah,
I wouldn't worry about where you get drafted. Just be happy you're there.
exactly.
You'll have a
Yeah.
chance. You'll have a chance to prove whether you can play.
Yeah.
It's not like the old days too, where now the draft is set up so you can only make so much money. Before, the
Yeah.
first round pick could make the most money by far, but now it's all scheduled, and so it is what it is, and
Mhm.
you just be happy you're there, move on.
You mentioned Chicago, and I covered Ohio State football. And so Justin Fields is a player I covered, and he threw his first NFL pick against like the Heisman winner, who threw 3 picks in that game after his injury coming back, and Joe Burrow. And I'm wondering, when they threw their first NFL pick, I remember asking him, and he said it was a relief after he had all this pressure on him to finally get it out of the way, because an interception is a part of football. And I'm wondering, you've never had a pick in a Super Bowl. So did you ever have that kind of pressure? Although, you played very well under pressure. Do you think that was an asset, or did you really feel it and then it just came about and
Yeah,
something that you were able to push through?
I never even thought about it really. You just go in and you just want to play. You don't want to make that big mistake. And um, if it happens, it happens. And, he didn't make it through college not throwing one. And I haven't seen anybody make it through a season not throwing one yet.
Right.
So it's going to happen, and it's part of the game. Guy doesn't want to drop a pass, but he's going to drop it. Guy doesn't want to miss a block, but he's going to miss a block because those guys on the other side getting paid too. So it's just how you respond after it. I think that really makes a difference in a player.
Right. There's not really any bad players in the NFL. It's best on best. We
Yeah.
see that throughout the league. And what kind of advice would you give them when there's so much pressure on them now, especially, social media wasn't around back then, but you see it all out there. When you look at the differences in that aspect and how the pressure can get to them, you're the one who can perform the best under pressure. So what kind of advice would you give to them?
You just can't look at it. It's going to be out there, and I mean, even when we're winning times, we'd play like two or three games. It might go without throwing a touchdown pass. And they would say, well, how come you haven't thrown a touchdown pass? I go, well, would you like me to ask Roger Craig to fall down on the 1 yard line so I can throw a touchdown pass? That's just the way the game goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you miss an opportunity, but did we win? Yeah, we won. But yet there will always people be criticizing you even when you win. So you just got to do your best. It's hard for these guys to stay off social media, obviously. Yeah. But do the best you can. And during the season, I just wouldn't pay attention to it as much as you can. Good.
Right. So
yeah.
Yeah. And you're in your favor of putting the younger quarterbacks in and give them the reps, but it can be a tough dynamic between a veteran quarterback and a younger quarterback. We saw that with Aaron Rodgers as they drafted Jordan Love. So in San Francisco in particular, do you think that they are in a good spot should they put in the younger quarterback? And what would you do in San Francisco in particular?
I would play Jimmy. He's taking them to a Super Bowl. Unless he starts having troubles or he's not healthy, you don't want to create a problem if you don't have one, and I know early it's going to happen. They're going to put him in, and Jimmy just has to kind of put it behind him as fast as he can and don't worry about it because he's not going to continue to play. And unless he starts playing bad, and, so far he's played well in the first two games. So we'll see what happens. And I just hope they don't make a mistake by making a mistake and creating a problem when they don't have one.
And do you think that the 49ers can win the Super Bowl this year with how deep the NFC West, NFC is together, how deep they are? Do you think they can do it with either quarterback?
I know they can. I don't know about the young guy. Coming in relief and playing is a lot different than knowing you're the starter and having to play. A lot of people have been in that position before where behind a great quarterback, and then all of a sudden they get in play because the guy's hurt. They play for 5 or 6 games, and then the guy comes back and everything's back to normal. And then that guy takes off and makes a bunch of money somewhere else, and then they can't play. When they have to be the starter, they can't do it. Goes all the way back to guys who left from, even Tom. Look at 5 guys from behind Tom, and the only guy that's really had success has been Jimmy. Look at the guys who was behind Marino, leaves to go to Detroit. Nothing. Guy that was behind Steve Young left and went to Kansas City. Didn't play well enough to stick around, and you see it all the time. It's a different mental set when you have to be the starter.
Right. Do you see any surprise playoff contenders? Anyone that you're keeping an eye on throughout the first few weeks? I know you missed a few the first week, but any that you see making a standout?
You know what? I see craziness coming out of, like, for some reason, the Raiders. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I got a bad feeling over there.
Hmm. Well, I'm curious to see who you think will win the game this weekend in Chicago between Notre Dame and Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1-1. Notre Dame, there's been a shakeup, and so wanting to see who you're taking for this one. If you have any score
But I think
predictions.
Notre Dame comes out on top. I think it's going to be a good game, though. I think it's a really, really good test with a solid football team there to with them. I know the games have been close, and everybody's saying the teams they've won and the teams they've beaten aren't ranked when the games were still close, and I think that's hurt them a little bit. But wins win, and you just got to keep going. And you get a tough part of your schedule coming up, so just let's get through this, and let's get through this one first, and then we'll worry about the rest of them. But I think they'll be okay this week.
Will you be there with a Guinness in your hand, rooting on the
No,
Fighting
I won't be
Irish?
there. I actually have a wedding this week.
Oh, okay. Well, my last question would be do you remember what your welcome to the NFL moment was? There's such a big gap from college to NFL, and curious to
um,
see.
well, my first start was against Seattle, and I threw 2 interceptions that were run back for touchdowns. So that
Oh,
was my welcome to the NFL moment. I think the guy ran me over too to get in the second time. That even make it worse.
well, you definitely rebounded well. I think you kind of gave it to the look at me now, after
Yeah.
your career. I think that you came out on top, but I really appreciate you jumping on, sharing some great insight. Looking forward to see, more about this partnership. And I really want to get to the tap room.
I know that'll
That'd
be
be
fun
great coming up.
when it gets open. Yeah, that'll be fun. Good place to
Yeah.
put it too. Chicago, it's great.
Yes. Yes. Chicago's a great city, great sports town too. One of
Yeah,
my favorites.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again. I
Thank you.
really
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
it.
Yeah,
Have a
appreciate
good
your
one.
time. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.